How quickly we forget? People were hurting. And what is it that my crowd want to do? Forget it. Forget it. God, this is the United States of America.
To discuss the issues that matter most to Americans, we are joined as we start this second hour by Nebraska Governor Pete Ricketts. Governor Ricketts, I always love talking to governors on this show because the states are the laboratory of democracy. The president, you heard him there, does not seem to have much of a plan to deal with what we are facing as a country right now. What can he learn from states like yours about how to recharge an economy?
Well, one of the things that we've done here in Nebraska to be so successful is that we have let people live their lives and get out of their way. We've cut the regulatory burden. We try to make government assist people, and we try to make sure that people can just do their jobs. And you think about what the Biden administration is doing. You know, just this week, for example, they canceled the sale of leases in Alaska and the Gulf of Mexico. You mentioned gas up over $4 a gallon, diesel's up over $5 a gallon. That's where American families are feeling it. You mentioned inflation being high. You know, that's the most corrosive things to Americans' pocketbooks. I mean, he is taking no action to address these issues when some of the things are just very simple on how he could start making a difference in everyday Americans' lives, and he's not doing it. Instead, he just rather blame somebody else than take action.
Governor, if you had to pick one thing that he could do right now, what would it be?
Well, I think one of the key things that inflation is going to center around is gas prices. And, you know, for example, I don't believe the Biden administration has had a successful sale or auction for leases right now for oil and gas. Since they've come into office, these things used to happen every quarterly or every 6 months, and he's not had one successful one since he's been in office. Start getting that done. That would start taking the pressure off of gas prices. That impacts just about every American. I mean, we're paying 32 cents a gallon more than we were just last month.
Right.
That's $125 million a day that Americans are paying more in gas prices. The president could take immediate action to take release on that. He could also promote ethanol. Wholesale ethanol recently sold for about $1.20 a gallon cheaper than gasoline. You start blending higher blends of ethanol, you're going to start bringing down those fuel prices.
Governor, at this hour in Washington, a women's march is taking place as security has been heightened to protect Supreme Court justices from pro-abortion activists. Just quickly, I'd like to get your reaction to the possibility that states will again have the final say over abortion restrictions.
Well, if you look at the Constitution, this is the proper role. I mean, the 10th Amendment is very clear. Anything that is not specifically identified for the federal government to do is left up to the states. And this is one of those matters that never should have been taken over by the federal government. Roe versus Wade was a horrible constitutional decision. And so it should be up to the states to regulate this. And should we see Roe versus Wade overturned, we're going to be very excited here in Nebraska to see what we can do to do more to protect those preborn babies. So we're anxiously awaiting what this decision is going to be. And should we get a favorable decision, we're going to take action.
Governor, when you see and hear that illegal immigrants are getting free baby formula, but Americans are facing empty shelves, what is going through your mind? And again, just to be more solutions driven, let's talk about what can be done to try and deal with this 40% decrease in availability of formula.
Yeah, I mean, there's several things here. It just demonstrates the incompetence of the Biden administration over and over again. If they hadn't encouraged millions of illegal immigrants to come across the border, we would not have to be taking care of those folks. And then the FDA's just mishandling of the shutdown of the Abbott facility that is contributing to the lack of baby formula. And the FDA also not taking steps when they knew this was going to happen. This happened back in February, taking steps to alleviate it. You know, for example, one of the things the FDA could do right now, they're keeping foreign formula out of the United States, basically because of labeling. If it meets the basic safety and nutritional standards, we should be allowing that in. The Biden administration could take steps to be able to allow that on an emergency basis. These are the kind of things that are action-oriented. The president either has failed on or could be taking steps right now to try and alleviate this crisis. I mean, we're feeling it here in Nebraska. It's all across the country where I've had numerous parents tell me they're searching store after store after store to try and find baby formula to feed their baby. This is just unbelievable that American parents can't find fine baby formula, and yet we've got the federal government buying it up and taking care of illegal immigrants that if they hadn't left our southern border undefended, we wouldn't have to do.
Governor Ricketts, your choice for the Republican nomination for governor won the GOP primary Tuesday evening, besting former President Trump's endorsed candidate. Your candidate, Jim Pillen, is now the favorite to succeed you as governor, and he's the favorite to win the November election. You were a staunch supporter of President Trump, and you're popular, two-term governor of Nebraska. Why do you believe former President Trump felt the need to insert himself into the race the way that he did?
Well, I have supported many of President Trump's policies. We agree on many, many policies. In this case, in a contested primary, he was picking a different candidate than I was. And, that's not uncommon when you have contested primaries. Ultimately, Nebraskans decided who they wanted to choose to be the Republican nominee that I think ultimately will be the next governor of Nebraska. And that's the way it is. Generally, Nebraskans are looking to make their own decisions here in the state, and people outside the state certainly can have an influence, but Nebraskans look to their own to make a decision.
20 seconds. My control room's going to kill me for this, but you declared May Beef Month in the state of Nebraska. Tell us why you did that. Why is it important? Was it important to highlight our beef industry?
Well, I do it every year. Beef is our #1 single biggest industry here in Nebraska. It's one of the most nutritionally dense foods you can buy. I mean, you can get more protein from 3 ounces of beef than 3 cups of quinoa. I don't know anybody wants to eat 3 cups of quinoa. So it's just a great way to produce great nutritional food. And so we do it every year. It's one of our biggest industries.
All right. Governor Pete Ricketts, always appreciate you being here, sir.
Great. Thanks very much.